You can introduce yourself if you want to, but I'm just going to pull up.
Pull up that excellent tweet from the State College office from like 12 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
What, did he tweet it?
He tweeted it.
You did?
Yeah, David and I did.
Oh, good for
It was
you.
a self-promotion thing for sure, but you know.
Oh, was it the one about the Central Pennsylvania?
No. It was like a satellite loop or something.
Yeah,
on the
it's
same
a
college.
college TV.
Alright, one last thing and then I'm all set.
The JV
Dude, sneak preview, bro.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks everyone for coming this week. So our weather briefing speaker is John Banghoff. He was a grad student here and now he works at the National Weather Service here in St. Louis.
Thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. It's weird being back here. Graduated officially coming up on a year ago, but haven't been here for like 2-ish years. Thought maybe some grad students would maybe show up or something, but
It's weird for us too.
yeah, it's okay. So I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way. As an alum of the Ohio State, I had to give the color scheme here, but I didn't wear Ohio State. I'm not going to mention it anymore. It's okay. I had to get that out of my system, and we will carry on. So without further ado, what we're going to talk about today, the winter that wasn't. Just took over climate focal point duties at the Weather Service, so we're going to kind of go through and figure out. We'll look back at, well, what winter didn't happen here. Then kind of look at the Nashville tornadoes through the eyes of tornado debris signature. Take a kind of stroll down memory lane with some of the stuff I did in undergrad and the work that's continued at Oklahoma. And then we'll look at the forecast, which is why all of you are here, and then look ahead to what I've called the grass mowing forecast. Basically an outlook for, it seems like the grass is going to start going pretty quickly, and I'm excited as a fan of mowing the grass. So, winter that wasn't, we'll start here with the average temperature departure for December through February. And as you can see here, above average every single spot across the Northeast. This is something we're all pretty familiar with, but just it's kind of stark when you put it into context. Generally across Pennsylvania, 3 to 5 degrees above normal as far as average temperatures in isolated spots, 5 to 7. Only a few little pixels there in the 1 to 3 range, so it's certainly been warm, and as a result also not a whole heck of a lot of snow. So precipitation departure, I'm not sure why the Northeast region and the Pennsylvania region are different color bars. You'll have to kind of bear with the climate center there for that, but in essence what you're seeing is although it was warmer, precipitation in quite a few places was still above normal. So. And that kind of matches what was expected going into this winter, above average temps, above average precipitation, and that kind of bears itself out. I'm not totally sure here. If you look in the regional, you can see some places are well below average, and I wonder if there's just some issue with this color bar, because below 0 certainly, but we don't quite get the magnitude. Bottom line, some locations did still receive more precipitation than normal. And so the fact that we didn't get much snow has more to do, it seems like, with the above average temperatures than the lack of moisture moving through. And then snowfall departure here, another somewhat misleading color bar when you first look at it. Everything from like the second lightest shade of blue on down is below average. So you can see here in Pennsylvania, really the only spot that somewhat was above average was the far northern tier. Once again, a little bit different color bar in the Pennsylvania realm of things, but across the board we're 10 to 20 inches below normal for winter time, and certainly the Laurel Highlands and some of these spots that tend to get a little bit more snow, where 25, 30, even 35 inches below normal for this time of year. On the regional map as well, you can see here the Tuckahoe Plateau downstream there in upstate New York, also well below normal. They did finally get a big dump in snow last week, so that kind of helped them get back on the train a little bit as far as full winter, even outside of meteorological winter, but again, fairly noteworthy. So I stole this from beloved Ben Reppert. He put this on Twitter. In preparation for these briefings, I tend to go to Twitter and just kind of give credit to folks that come up with really good ideas. And so Ben put this up, I guess it was today. So this is the 2018 snowfall from the No Risk site, and then I'll flip forward to 2019, and we will see pretty stark contrast. I go back and forth between these a couple different times, and you can see for the Northeast in a lot of locations, I mean pretty much everywhere, significantly less than was observed last year. Out west, they seem to do okay, but pretty much across the board, it was just a less snowy winter, and I think in large part because of that persistent ridge and below average temperatures that persisted. Also crunched some numbers here for 5 of our main climate sites at the National Weather Service, and I have the meteorological winter snowfall totals. Bradford is the outlier here. They did end up with 52 inches, kind of persistent lake effect snow and northwest flow. And I think the reason for that is because it was so warm, Lake Erie had record low ice, or very near record low ice coverage. And as a result, the lake effect snow machine was able to persist throughout the entire winter. And so Bradford did pretty well, but everywhere else, hanging out, Altoona, Harrisburg, and State College, all top 5 least snowy winters, and then Williamsport, their honorable mention, in 11th least snowy. One thing that I was kind of digging through, I was doing an analog back in January and looking at Harrisburg March snowfall totals. I was just kind of looking and seeing how they've done in the past, and of note was 4 of the past 5 years, Harrisburg has gotten more than 10 inches of snow in Harrisburg. I don't think that's predictive of this year, as we'll talk about. It looks like it is going to be pretty warm and not much snow. But I was kind of surprised by that Harrisburg has kind of hit the jackpot for the last 5 years with a decent amount of snowfall in March. Again, I bet at this point with the pattern, we're talking less than an inch total, maybe similar to 2016 down in Harrisburg, but still certainly worthy of note. And then 2 last plots, again, just another way to frame it. This is from the Southeast Regional Climate Center, Climate Perspectives, and all of the boxes show basically the rank of average mean temperature. There's also some color issues. You'll notice some of these blues and pinks down here, like that blue 2, that is the second warmest, even though it's colored blue. I'm not sure what was going on with that, but across the board, only 2 sites in the Northeast region had winters with temps outside of the top 5. It's pretty remarkable that that's the case, one north of Pittsburgh and then one in sort of central upstate New York. And then record warmest for at least 20 stations in the Northeast, just by doing a quick count. Many ways to say that it was a warm winter across the Northeast. And then in total precipitation, again, another way to kind of frame it, top 10 winter seasons for many across the Northeast, and near average year for most of central Pennsylvania. We were kind of in decent shape, you can see here, up north, Williamsport, and then down towards Harrisburg, and then over towards Allentown, kind of top 10, 15. Wettest, but still not anything super notable. Other places like West Virginia did a whole lot better, top 2 or 3 wettest year. I believe that is the extent of all the winter that wasn't, so we'll go ahead and move on, and I'll talk about the Nashville tornadoes. Details have just come out actually a couple hours ago with additional information from Nashville, but I, again, grabbed this GIF from Stu Ostro, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, in the Weather Channel. Ostro? Okay. And he put together this loop of this supercell that was kind of tracking right along warm front, merging supercells, and went right through downtown Nashville. Some pretty remarkable footage coming out of there. And so this kind of sets us up. You can very clearly see the debris ball there and reflectivity. And another zoomed in version of, just kind of gut-wrenching. And the fact that it came through at, between 1 and 2 in the morning certainly adds insult to injury in this case. I'm going to approach this and look at it from a tornado debris signature standpoint. As I said, back in 2014 when I was working at the National Weather Service in Atlanta, did some preliminary work looking at TDS height, so how far the debris was lofted, and comparing that to the intensity of the tornado. And Sam Emerson is a grad student at the University of Oklahoma who has taken this work and run with it and done way more really cool stuff. So I'm just going to show some of his results to give some context for what we're looking at. So this was the tornado that went through Nashville. There were 2 different main tornadoes, one in Nashville and one in Putnam County, a little bit farther east. On this one, peak rotational velocity 82.6 knots, and then the peak TDS height was about 18.3 thousand feet, or 18,300 feet. Sam has put together these really nice plots with TDS height on the x-axis and then maximum VROT on the y-axis. And you can see where the Nashville, Tennessee radar data would indicate kind of a EF3, EF4 range for the tornado. And his code here on the left-hand side, you can see basically 83% chance of an EF3 and about a 17% chance of EF4 higher, with a best match wind speed about 155 miles an hour. This did turn out to be pretty good. They confirmed this to be an EF3, which I think winds about 165 miles an hour. So all in all, some pretty cool stuff. Would encourage you guys to give him a follow. I think we're trying to finally get some of this stuff published as well. Another, what's up?
Sorry.
Yep, you're good.
When he uses the term V road, is he talking about the difference between outbound and inbound, or is he talking about the actual magnitude of either? Do you know?
So I believe it's both of them divided by 2. So basically, yeah, the inbound minus the outbound divided by 2. So the full difference, I believe that is the case. I can double check on that, but I'm pretty sure V route, yeah, is those velocities divided by 2.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, and then he has another plot here, again looking at the same X and Y axis, and where this one would fall would be about a 60% chance in an EF3, and then about a 30 to 40% chance of an EF4. So just some kind of cool visualizations where even in real time we can get some indication or some hint as to what the intensity of the tornado may be. And then here is from the public information statement they put out. They determined that the track from Nashville on east was one full tornado track, in essence 53.4 miles, 800 yards across. Unfortunately, 5 fatalities and over 150 injuries. And so just to review the EF scale, which I needed to review for myself, I know this thing's showing up there now, but 165 is as high in EF3 as you can possibly be. So kind of on that border between EF3 and EF4. And then we'll look at the Cookeville one in Putnam. Rotational velocity was only 55 knots in this case, and TDS height wasn't quite as high, but the velocity couplet was pretty tight, and so Sam mentioned that could be an underestimate of rotational velocity, in which case it would lend itself to what was confirmed to be an EF4 tornado with a little bit stronger winds, quite a bit of decimation, and just pretty remarkable stuff here. Another kind of tidbit that I thought was interesting, many of you guys may have seen this, a guy from the Nashville office plotted there's been 3 different tornadoes that have gone through Nashville, one in 1933, one in 98, and one in 2020. And it's pretty interesting how they all pretty much cross over the same area. So just kind of an interesting thing. Obviously they're spread over a long period of time. We're not talking about like a more Oklahoma situation where it's every few years, but still some interesting stuff. And then one last thing that I want to show, Justin Gibbs from the Warning Decision Training Division down in Oklahoma posted these 2 radar pictures. This is from the April 16th, 1998 tornado. And then 22 years later, he posts kind of the radar upgrades or updates with this particular tornado. And of course, you can note the reflectivity, much higher resolution here. And then also bottom right is blank here. We did not have dual pole radar. It's now a correlation coefficient with the ability to pick up on a tornado debris signature. So some pretty interesting advancements along the way with these tornadoes. All right, so we'll get to the JV index stuff in a second. I'm going to now talk about the weather. What do you say about that? Let's see here. So satellite imagery here, you can see low pressure system off the southeast. There is kind of an area of high pressure here off the east coast, which is has given us bright blue sky this morning, and we're starting to be overspread by some of these higher cirrus clouds, giving it kind of a milky sky appearance. This little system right here is going to come down and merge with this little guy, or attempt to, tomorrow, which is going to lead to some precipitation. Still some model disagreement as far as how intense the precipitation will be, which we'll talk about here shortly. But then behind that, high pressure looks like it's going to move in for the weekend and potentially bring us one, maybe last surge of cold air for a little while. And then beyond that, the models become much less clear on what's going on. But beautiful morning this morning, and still pretty pleasant out there when we look outside. Next thing to look at, I kind of like to do this just to get a big picture view of what's happening over the next several days. Usually when I've been off for a few days of the weather service, I'll just hop on here and say, okay, I can brief myself. And so this is supposedly right now general idea of what's going on. High pressure generally there, and then that low pressure system up over the Great Lakes. As we head into tonight, we'll see kind of these 2 systems that attempt to do some semblance of a merger. Don't quite connect up, but there is some interaction between the 2 of them. And then we're talking probably a little bit of snow tomorrow morning, changing over to rain by afternoon as things warm up. And then as that cold front pushes through, high pressure will pretty quickly take over, slide that thing out. We'll maybe have some gusty winds Friday evening into the early part of Saturday. And then again, looks like it should be a pretty beautiful weekend with plenty of sunshine, very little in the way of cloud cover, with high pressure overhead. And then models do agree pretty well on the approach of another low pressure system, cold front, bringing some decent rain Monday into Tuesday. What happens beyond that is much less clear. There's quite a bit of model disagreement, so we'll dive into that a little bit. But in general, that kind of gives an idea of what we're expecting for the next couple of days. As far as kind of the benchmark model at this point, the HREF, Storm Prediction Center, puts together, has done a really, really good job this winter and in winters past with identifying precipitation type. And so looking here at Pennsylvania, you can kind of see across the southeast, there's the moisture associated with that low pressure system off the coast, and then sort of a deep upper level trough that's going to surge in and create kind of an interesting pattern where it does appear there could be some semblance of a split over central Pennsylvania. Looks like that plume, again, there's pretty good agreement and rain off to the south and some snow off to the north, where the temperatures are a little bit warmer across the south. Kind of a void in much precipitation whatsoever across the central portion of the Commonwealth. And then that upslope, kind of northwesterly flow pattern, kicking off some snow showers across the Laurels. And then again, pretty quickly by the time we get into Saturday morning, high pressure moves in, cloud cover should clear out. Looks like it will be chilly directly behind that cold front, but kind of looking at, generally speaking, dusting to an inch across the east and not a whole lot beyond that.
When do you think the wind will switch over to northwest?
What's that?
What time of night will it switch over to northwest?
That is a great question. I guess we can take a gander at the see what the NAM3K is showing us here, just as an example. In fact, this is kind of indicating that it would turn over a little quicker, maybe even morning tomorrow, but then really start picking up as we head into the afternoon, and that surge of colder air will come in kind of more evening wise. What are your thoughts?
I don't know, I've been sort of hoping for overnight, but
Yeah.
the models, it's sort of mushy, there's two storms.
Right,
So when does the front decide it wants to be with that storm and not this storm, and how does it get from here to there?
Sure, absolutely. That'll be interesting to watch for sure. Yeah. And now, just looking at the official Weather Service forecast here, you can see we're not really expecting a whole heck of a lot. This does kind of show, I'll go ahead and click on this. This does sort of show the split across the central part of the state. Could see some higher totals farther north and east, and that seems to be pretty well corroborated by some of these high-res models. Maybe a surge of some moisture, especially higher elevation. Could see quick accumulation of a couple inches. And I think Binghamton was talking about the potential of maybe some winter weather advisories could be necessary tomorrow. And then in the Laurels, again, maybe some higher totals here, maybe some flurries. Could see a light dusting or so, but I'm not expecting a whole heck of a lot in the way of accumulation. While we're at it, kind of a promotion of something new on our webpage. So if you go to weather.gov/ctp/winter or /state college/winter, there's all these different tabs. One of the things that we have just started prototyping is this weather type and coverage forecast display. And so we actually generate weather grids that which allows us to predict, is it going to be rain, is it going to be snow, is it going to be a mix, what timing is that stuff going to be? Let me see if this is rolling. This will kind of give you an idea of timing that we're expecting. Now, obviously, it's a little bit messy because this is a grid type forecast, but I think this is going to be kind of a cool thing that we'll continue to use more and more of, showing where we're going to kind of have this mix. That doesn't look super wonderful whatsoever. So it's obviously a prototype, still needs some work. I should have maybe checked this before rolling through. But in essence, something you guys can kind of look at if you're looking at precipitation type transitions, or maybe even as we head into the summertime, as we have a cold frontal passage or things like that, can be a useful tool along the lines of all these winter weather type tools that we have at our disposal. Any other thoughts on tomorrow's snow before I dive more into the long term? Doesn't look like a particularly impactful storm, just kind of something to talk about. They don't quite link up to really bring the whole system together, but nonetheless, we'll keep carrying on. All right, now I want to look at some of the ensembles for kind of a longer range. First, we'll look at temperatures. I'm kind of excited actually about, looks like a warming pattern as we head into the weekend. Today's the 5th, so by the 10th, what day is that? Tuesday, yeah. So it looks like early next week we're going to have kind of a surge of warmer air as that high pressure moves off to the east. So high pressure this weekend going to keep things cold, relatively chilly by the time we get to Saturday morning. That looks like certainly the coldest part of the forecast. And then we'll slowly warm up as high pressure moves off the east coast. Southerly winds kick in and ushering some of that warmer air out ahead of the next cold front. And so certainly going to be all rain as we head into Monday, Tuesday, and even into Wednesday next week. So from a temperature standpoint, mild spell early next week, pretty good model agreement in that. What happens thereafter is much less agreed upon, I guess we could say. So as far as our QPF, so we got this little surge overnight, well, really through the day tomorrow. Not generally going to amount to much, maybe a couple tenths of an inch of QPF. But then as we head into next week, we've got this initial surge of some rain, which looks like it's going to be kind of, again, half an inch or so of rain. Not a whole lot to be too worried about as that cold front passes through. Dynamics don't look particularly wonderful. I don't think it's going to be that exciting of a system, at least in our neck of the woods. But then there's this other sort of surge as we head into the later part of next week that could be a little bit interesting potentially. GFS does want to generate the potential for maybe another inch of snow, but the spread here is pretty notable. Obviously there's some outliers, but some indication, a couple of the GFS runs have been pushing more towards a 5-6 incher. Many people have talked about some of these kind of la la land GFS runs that have sort of brought a nor'easter right over Pennsylvania, maybe one last surge of winter. So let's just jump over and look at the deterministic GFS for what it's worth at this point, and kind of get an idea of what it is generating for next week. So this is 0Z Tuesday, so Monday night. There's that cold front as it goes through. Doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of dynamics necessarily to do a whole lot with it. And then GFS kind of keeps generally zonal flow pattern. And the track of this low is really going to sort of tell the story for what happens. There's been quite a bit of model variability. The current run indicates maybe snow across the northern part of the Commonwealth with rain farther south. But some other runs have indicated maybe a dumping of snow. Again, we're going to continue to track the low because we're still so far out. It certainly bears watching, and we, will get more clarity on it at this point. But the GFS has kind of been bouncing all over the place. The Euro, which has tended to be, maybe we could say, more consistent, not quite as squirrely this winter so far. Again, looking at pivotal weather. 0Z Tuesday once again. So this again has kind of a decaying cold front as it comes through, not a whole lot of moisture associated with it, not expecting any flooding. And then this particular run keeps the low across the New York PA border, which would be completely hopeless for any sort of winter weather. I'd be okay with it, but potentially another surge of some colder air behind it as you as that cold front does sweep through. But we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. Another way of describing this circumstance, which I think does a decent job, is this 2-meter temperature anomaly. And we'll go ahead and start 12Z Saturday, so 7 a.m. Saturday morning. Surge of below average temperatures this weekend, and then slowly but surely by Sunday afternoon, we're in the southerly flow regime, and boom, we're back into plenty of warmth ahead of that cold front. Certainly going to peak at 15 to even 20 degrees above average for this time of year, so big fan of that. You can slowly but surely see the cold front and the colder air sweep in. But as far as the Euro is concerned, we never really get back below average. We kind of get the surge again, an attempt like the cold frontal surge here that comes behind that system takes us from plus 15 to like plus 5. So we're cooling off, but still staying above average in the Euro. Man, it's keeping warm air firmly in place. Let's go ahead and bop over and check out what the deterministic GFS is showing for the longer range, and this will lead nicely into our next system. So again, Monday looks good there. The cold front does pack a little more of a punch, I suppose. Maybe we're going back to near normal, and then that additional surge into the GFS a little farther south, we could bop a little bit below average. But from a climatology standpoint, our temperatures, our average continues to get warmer. So even the potential of having a high in the 30s seems less and less likely the farther on we get. And again, a lot of the model guidance is indicating we're going to be nice and warm One last thing I want to show from a forecast standpoint is this weather.us page. I guess we can use some cookies here. It goes out really 14 days. And so this is for State College, and you can see there's kind of the dip in temperatures below freezing here on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Some indication that there could be, some of the outliers are below freezing, but in general, if we look at the mean, basically our lows are, above freezing, and our highs are pushing up into the 40s and 50s, generally speaking, over the duration. There's no real signal here of significant cold in sight. So for the snow lovers, maybe late next week, not super optimistic because it's just been really tough to get much cold air in here. One other thing that we may need to pay attention to kind of in the next Thursday time frame could be some cold air damming. It does look like, depending on the track of that low, with some of the easterly flow sinking in, that could be something that we need to pay attention to, but again, don't think it's going to really cause a whole lot of issues. So a couple other things I want to just look at here. I would be remiss if I didn't, I guess self-promote is maybe not exactly what this is, but I've showed this before. This is what we've kind of coined the JV index. The premise here was that if the wind speed in miles an hour is higher than the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, you don't want to be outside. So that's above this kind of bottom left to lower right line. And so we kind of went through, and me and a coworker one day went a little wild with this, actually put it into our operating system, and it calculates every single hour through the entire 7-day forecast period. And so just to kind of show some of the extremes here, this is Saturday morning, which is going to be the coldest period in our forecast, our 7-day forecast. Wind chill is going to be in the I guess from near 10 to mid-20s, and so JV index comes in at a 4. Not super wonderful to be outside, and unpleasant, I think, would probably characterize how those wind chills are going to feel on Saturday morning. Contrast that then with when we warm up and get pretty nice as we head into the day on Monday. Highs in the 50s and 60s across the area, and widespread ones across much of the Commonwealth, which we've coined kind of perfect. We'll kind of have to see what actually happens, but kind of the full realm of extremes. I'm excited to keep using this as some semblance of a heuristic for, okay, how are you doing? Is it going to be nice on Monday? It seems like, yeah, it will be pretty nice on Monday. Saturday morning, not so much. So again, just wanted to throw that out there. Any other thoughts on the forecast over the next 7 days? Okay, so now let's look ahead to springtime. This is going to be pretty short and sweet. I'm showing the Climate Prediction Center outlooks. This is the 6 to 10 day precip and temperature, and whereas the winter has been above average precip, above average temps, looks like pretty good confidence at this point in all of that continuing. 8 to 14 is much of the same. Maybe not quite as much precipitation in our neck of the woods, but certainly some warmer weather. And as I said, it looks like below freezing nights are going to become fewer and farther between, so I'll really expect that things are going to start greening up pretty quickly. Down in DC, there's already plenty of flowers blooming. I've seen a lot of posts on social media of daffodils in full bloom, and so I don't think we're too far off. Maybe even by the end of March we could start seeing some trees start popping and some fun news there. And then for the 3-month precip and temp outlook, more of the same, kind of hanging on this train. It'll be interesting to see if we get a pattern shift at all where we could potentially dry out and even see drought, heat wave type stuff over the summer. We're just going to have to wait and see. But at this point, above average temps and above average precipitation is the going rate. One late addition that I added kind of just before I went here, which also lends itself to, hey, we're going to be warming up pretty quickly. This is from Brian Bretschneider up in Alaska. This is the coldest 90-day period of the year using climate normals and when it starts and ends. And so the ending time for us, if you can see there in the light blue, March 5th through March 9th is generally the end of the coldest 90-day stretch. I mean, we know that we're going to start warming up, obviously, but as far as the coldest 90-day stretch, we're coming out of that. We're going to start having later sunsets, at least until Saturday, and then we'll correct a little bit here, and then we will go from there. So my outlook is hopefully I'll be able to mow my grass by the end of March. That's what I'm hoping for at this point. But snow lovers, maybe next Thursday could be a possibility of snow, but I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath. So 3:46, a little over, but that is that. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has.
When's the next meeting of the Central Pennsylvania AMS?
That is I'm glad you brought that up because I've been wanting to. So hot off the press, we just launched our Twitter and Facebook accounts today, starting a local chapter for AMS anyway. I know SUBAMs exist, we don't want to stump on them, we kind of want to operate in concert along with. And so our next official meeting, 95% sure it's going to be April 2nd. It's a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Tailgate Sports Bar and Grill on East College. So we really are excited about getting that thing launched. Got about 70 people or so on the books at this point. I think we can probably up that to about 100 across AccuWeather, Weather Service, Penn State Media, and then a variety of other entities, BASF, Freshheat Weather, etc. So I would encourage you guys to follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be in touch. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has them about the local chapter. But I think that would be a pretty cool thing that State College has been in need of for a long while, bringing everybody together and just providing a nice avenue for social activities and professional development and things like that. Thank you, John. Good call.
Thanks, John.
All right, if there's no questions, then we go.
All right.
We'll have a weather briefing next week because it's spring break, but then the week after that will be Dan McCoggin from
Thanks, Sal.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for coming. Go Bucks tonight. Beat Illinois.
Those two teams still have college basketball teams?
Hey, just because Penn State's a basketball school all of a sudden.